Hello, my name is Logan. I attended January 6th, the Trump speech, and was on the Capitol building during that mildly chaotic event, January 6th, after President Trump's speech. I got a lot of photos. Now, this here is to give my what I would deem an expert testimony on the events that I experienced and witnessed that day. And it seems like the mainstream media is vehemently trying to push the idea that this was a violent event, that it was exceptionally chaotic, that there was people just so frantic to overthrow their government or punch into the Capitol building that they only came to Washington, D.C. for that purpose. But I hope these photos will bring new light to what was really happening. And with my witness testimony, I hope to bring a lot more detail and my own opinions into the situations as they're being displayed on my screen through my own camera. Now, why would I be considered an expert witness? Now, not only was I there, but I'm also a foreigner, so I'm Canadian. That means I'm not nearly as caught up in the politics as the Americans are. I was not getting my country stolen. I was not having, like, my prime minister / president talking about the corruption. I came to this because President Trump tweeted, January 6th, be there, will be wild. Now, as a photojournalist and my awareness, no, I'm a photojournalist, I don't do it intensely, but I just knew this was important, so I had to go. With my awareness of what the political climate was like, I had a very good intuition that this was going to be something that photography and video is going to be desperately required for. Now, I didn't know why. I thought I was going to be standing there while Trump was speaking, and then he was going to drop some major election fraud information, and the crowd was going to go wild, and I was going to be there to capture the crowd's reactions. I was going to be there to capture what happened if that happened. I'm also aware that at 1 p.m., they had to certify the electoral votes in the Capitol building, but I was not aware of how close that actually was to the speech location. I was only concerned with the speech. The Capitol building was not even on my mind, other than there were people in there to certify votes. So my destination was not malevolent or malicious or damaging in any way. In fact, throughout this entire situation and my experience there, I didn't touch anything. I didn't touch anyone. I did not go inside the Capitol building. I might have just said, thank you for being here, to a few protesters. I exchanged a business card or two with some people who were interested in seeing pictures. That's very, very, very standard stuff for any photographer out there. And you know, I might have yelled America once or twice because it's fun, and that's just where the energy was. But I was there in a totally neutral capacity as an observer and as a recorder to just make sure that, and these pictures are exceptionally historic. And I don't know, and a lot of people don't know how important January 6th was. I think we're still seeing a lot of the fallout and the repercussions of what actually happened that day because, quite frankly, I don't think anybody really knows what happened that day. And because of that, I am here to bring a unique angle. Now, why am I an expert witness? As I said, I was there, and I'm a professional photographer with an exceptionally high resolution camera. I use a Nikon DA50. Now, that doesn't mean I just immediately get amazing pictures. As you'll see, there's lots of blurry pictures and pictures shot sideways, because there were a lot of people and stuff happens very fast, and I try to match the speed. Sometimes I don't get the picture, of course, but the exceptionally high resolution of this camera is special because you'll see later in some of the pictures the detail that can be shown about situations is very, very high. I was also in the Canadian Infantry Reserves for 6 years, so I have, apart from other Canadians, a lot more exposure with guns and weapons and dangerous situations, very high stress situations. So, for example, going into this, I was not thinking everything was going to be peaceful, because I know where emotions are high, governments are at stake. There's a lot of people of the same kind of thinking. There could be tension, and this is America, so they have a Second Amendment, and I was aware that anybody really wearing a backpack could potentially be hiding weapons in their bags. I wasn't expecting anything to get shot, but I'm trying to put you in the idea and the sense that I'm not just thinking we're all going to raise our hands and chant and shout. I was thinking there was a chance that there could be some violence. So we have to consider that when I approach the Capitol building, for example. You would say, why would somebody do that? It's because if there's no dangerous situation, if there's no extreme tension, I can be very aware of that and understand that I'm safe. And most people can get very, very riled up when there are explosions going off and there's tear gas around and there's people shouting. So I'm trying to just tell you that I was very relaxed the whole time. I could have cracked a smile at any time. And in my personal experience, I only saw about maybe 4 or 5 acts of violence. But I thought they were all justified. So, for example, in some of my later pictures, there was a cop hitting a guy with a billy club because he was crowd controlling the building. Like, that just kind of makes sense. And there's people throwing tear gas. That just makes sense, right? A lot of the other stuff does not make sense. So, I parked a few blocks away from the Capitol, and I made my way in. So as I'm coming down the street here, lots of street vendors selling American flags, of course, trying to make their American dollars. I approached from the west. I'm pretty sure I'm looking east right here in this picture. And you can see we got people dressed up all tactical and stuff. There are some cops around. Streets are closed off. Places are getting boarded up. Streets are closed. Everything seems pretty calm. And it was calm. Remember, this is before Trump even spoke, so the Capitol building was not an issue or even a thought, other than, of course, that they were certifying the electors. Get some nice smoky shots. People walking down the street with their flags. Americans bring a lot of flags. Now, the weather was pretty cold. I'd say it was like 35 Fahrenheit, or maybe 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. There's a strong wind, as you'll see in my pictures. And look, this guy's flag right here is even blowing. You'll see in my pictures there was a strong wind. I was not cold at all because I do a lot of Wim Hof method, and I'm just very resistant to the cold. I had nothing to complain about, but I could see, and you can see people are dressed up. People were showing that they were cold, and this would create more stress and maybe send people home faster or make them want to stay where they are. So in saying that, the cold weather most likely and potentially made this situation not as extreme, as opposed to a nice, warm, hot, sunny day where people aren't getting tired from getting wind blasted. If they underdressed, they probably left early or had to go find some other whatever, or they might have been more stressed. These are all important factors when you have to consider for something like this that happened. So now President Trump was supposed to speak at 11 a.m. and like I said, or I didn't timestamp my camera, and which is my fault. So there would have to be pretty much an exact sort of timestamp connection with a photo or an event for me to get the accurate time on all of these photos, but they're not timed, other than you could determine the time elapsed between photos. The exact time was not accurate in my camera, so that cannot be a factor I can look at. More people just walking down. Normally my shooting style is if I see something like these guys walking down the street, I'll follow them or aim in the direction and take a bunch to try and get the one I'm looking for. And you'll see that pattern. Here's just some police. They had some gates here. This was on the edge of where Trump was speaking. There was some sort of lawn here. Trump was speaking in the White House. I think this is the White House actually, right here behind this guy's head. So the lawn extends this way. This is obviously not the Capitol building. There's nowhere near the Capitol building. And you can see the level of fencing they had here. Lots of cops for the entrance. And they had these small gates with more fencing and gates behind them. This is an example of me trying to get that shot. I'm trying to get the flag sticking out, but I never got it. Here's everybody walking. This is pre-Trump speech, maybe like 10 o'clock, 9:50. People doing their photo ops. Everybody's happy. Everybody's calm. I apologize if I click a little too fast. Nobody's rushing around. Everybody's smiling, happy, taking selfies, getting their photo ops, just like I'm doing. You got these people in their nice, wacky American costumes. People looking around. I was actually just following the crowd at this point. There you go, there's a guy covering his street. People with their Trump flags and Gadsden flags galore. The lawn of the Washington Monument there was open. So as you can, people just walking right up. There's a guy selling his flags on the left side. This is the crowd at the Washington Monument. Now, because Trump had so much time before he spoke, I did a little bit of sightseeing, and I went to the Lincoln Monument and the Korean War Memorial and just did a little loop instead of going right into the crowd and staying there. I think I just got like a couple pics to get the size of the crowd here. You can see the flags are all waving. It was windy. Everybody's dressed warm because it was cold. Oh, there's that guy. Big crowd. This guy wearing his 9/11 shirt. Yeah, history inside of history. You gotta try and make it work, right? Now you get these big groups of people that were walking around. Here's the black American flag, pure black. I can't remember specifically what it's for, but it means something. There's the World War II Memorial. Wasn't too busy, as you can see. But there were groups of protesters all marching over to the Trump speech area. This is a huge group of people, maybe like 90 people in this same group right here. But I remember this was around 10:30-ish, so still had 30-40 minutes before President Trump was supposed to speak. So I wasn't in as much of a rush to stay at the Washington Monument. Big group of people. Helicopter flying through the air. As you can see, there are a ton of people. Lots of tourists walking around. This is all pre-speech. Lots of tourists. They had their helo. Maybe that's a news helo or something. Who knows? Looking back at the World War II Memorial. People doing their touristy thing. What's this one? 661. Okay, just gotta get some more water. As you can see, lots of protesters doing their thing. At this point, I'm really just trying to get pictures that I think would be good for, the people. These Americans really, really like their flags. So I was taking lots of pictures of them and their flags and walking around. Really captures the spirit of America. People with their own signs. Now some of these you will see duplicates because I have gone and edited them already and they're in this folder. So included in this is all of my originals. They're unedited, uncropped, except for the ones that are obviously edited and cropped. But there's nothing missing here other than black photos. I still didn't even delete some of the out of focus photos. But this whole presentation will include all of my pictures, except for the ones I had to delete because they're useless. This is an example of an edited versus an original. That's probably the original, that's an edited version. I did my tourist thing, going to the Lincoln Memorial here. You can see there's definitely a big crowd, tons of tourists walking around. It was just a constant flow of people inside the Lincoln Memorial, doing my tourist thing. It's probably one of my favorite pictures of the day. I really like that. So here is the Korean War Memorial. I just went over to get really this picture of the Freedom's Not Free and these guys because I wanted to print out one of these for my room. Could have done a little better, but oh well. President Trump was due to be speaking around this time, so I returned to the Washington Monument. I stayed a bit near the back because there were some fences you could stand on, and I like to scope out the outside of the group before I go inside to get a feeling of the atmosphere, and the atmosphere was very calm, just very patient. As you can see, there was screens. I'm pretty sure President Trump was speaking at the White House, which would have been or at the base of the White House lawn. As you can see, there's one screen here, another set of screens here. I think this was another screen. If not, this is where he might have been speaking. I didn't see him physically that day. I only saw him through screens, so I'm not sure exactly where he was speaking. But we do a little loop here around the Washington Monument. I'm just standing up on stuff, trying to get some pictures. As you can see, the crowd was massive. Really, really big crowd. And even this picture doesn't do it justice because there was crowd in large numbers in other places you couldn't see. What can I say? You'd have to go look at some estimates of how many people attended. This is me just taking some pictures for people. Like, I have good balance, so I was just standing up there and people were begging me to just pass me their phones. So no problem, I'll get some pics. Another classic example of just some capturing the spirit of America. While we're waiting for Trump to go on, you can see the screen here. He still hasn't spoken, but they have the feed up. And I went around, did a little loop, because they had American flags lined right up, as you can see. So I was trying to get some nice curving line flag pictures. Perfect example. Strong winds, a lot of patriotism in there. So when I said there was a lot of crowd you couldn't see, I think my field of view was not even this much over, and you can see there's still a huge crowd of people. They're clogging up that staircase. More people back there, and then there was more people here, more people down the street. It was a huge, huge event. And this is all pre-Trump speech or right when he started. I can't remember specifically the very first picture I took when he started, but it would have been close during the beginning of his speech. I do remember I kind of clued in, like, oh, he's speaking now, versus watching him walk into the screen and snapping a picture immediately. So this is still around the Washington Monument. People everywhere. I'm trying to capture the crowd. My camera screen can flip out, so I was probably had my arms extended over my head trying to get these crowd pictures. There's no President Trump in that screen, so I'm assuming he still hasn't started talking. Yes. So in some other pictures, I was able to get up to these porta potties here, right in the center of the screen, but I did not get past the next level of gates. You can see some people with some another set of porta potties, and they're going through a line to get them closer to the president, and there's a whole section up here that you can see where people are probably sitting to see the president speak with a closer view. Zoom for another crowd size check. Still no President Trump speaking. Big crowd over there too. These people, you can see right here is the Washington Monument edge in between the White House and the Washington Monument. And these people had these massive banners out. I kind of don't know what it says. This one says "We the People," something something. That is the Buy America Artistico Society, something. Good luck finding it. That guy's got his old Kekistani flag. Good stuff. Huge Trump flag right there. That's what I'm trying to capture. I actually didn't even see there was a guy dressed up totally as Pepe, and I didn't get his picture because I was distracted by the massive Trump flag. There you go, 16 feet is what I think what that's saying. There, look at that, Pepe just comes out of nowhere. Bottom left. Still no President Trump speaking. Somebody with a Pardon Assange sign right here. Super calm atmosphere. Nobody's freaking out. Nobody is stressed out. I started walking up to just see how thick the crowd got, where the front was. You can see I turned around and got some Washington Monument shots. Of course, the crowd is massive, so I'm going to turn around and try and get a bit of the architecture with the nice stormy weather. As you can see, I'm walking up closer to these screens just to see how thick the crowd was, and it got really, really thick at a certain point. And I had to start walking over to the edge to basically get past where these porta potties were. It was so packed that people were climbing the trees, people were on top of the porta potties, people were standing on top of infrastructure, signposts, they were climbing red light signs. There's people in the trees. Sometimes I'm just trying to get pictures of just straight human emotion, regardless of the situation. I'm just trying to get somebody's face. So if there's some pictures that seem a little off, that's potentially what's happening there. People in the trees, right? If this was a chaotic event, these people would not just be standing up in leafless trees. They would be probably getting out to get out. But look, there's people casually in trees. The speech taking place was not some sort of just angry pep rally. It was not. It was just people casually waiting for President Trump to speak. They brought out the big American flag, and we're just passing it around the crowd. People in the trees, people everywhere you look. So here we can see that kind of more forward position. This is where people are just closer to see Trump. I was thinking that this was the stage he was speaking from. I never confirmed it because I never saw him physically. I passed my camera up to somebody who was on top of the porta potties, and my camera, I mean, I told him what the buttons do, but He obviously didn't get all the good ones, but thanks. A few times the police ran through and had to clear out a certain spot. I didn't even take a picture. Like, there was no urgency for me. I didn't think this was going to be as historic as it was. But, like, I was casually taking pictures. This was an example of, I think it was all medical myself. So you can see a medic here. Because there's no reason for them to really run in and part people other than to have a space to go and move. You can see, I don't know if these guys were cops or just protesters, like, standing around but and ignoring these guys, but there definitely is plainclothes people here wearing the same logos. They might have been working with the police. Who knows? As I was walking back to the Washington Monument, I saw this guy just giving him a piece of his mind, you know? Merca. Casually standing around. Nothing crazy. No extreme, freaky rhetoric. No screaming. No calling for violence. Just waiting for Trump. And there's my first picture of Trump right there when he started speaking. And he was 57 minutes late. So that most likely contributed to the Capitol building because, like I said, I showed up here because I thought during his speech he was going to be dropping bombs about evidence. And I was there going to be ready to capture the reaction of the people. And I don't know if they were going to be arresting people that day, but I just knew in my bones it was a historic day. So, and he was super late, so I imagine the people that were there were already agitated because of his lateness. Not because he called for violence, but because he was late. And then he was really just saying most of the same stuff he said before about votes getting stolen at this much time, and you know, I thought he was gonna wheel Assange out or something, but you know, I was just there to capture whatever happened. I was pretty detached from any of the results, and I've never seen Trump speak, so it was fun seeing him speak in person. It kind of brought a bit of a tangibleness to what I had seen on TV. Trump flags, nothing's going on. People standing around. Look, this guy's got his kid right here. Just nothing's crazy. Nobody's running around. That big American flag was getting passed around. You can still see Trump speaking. I tried to run in and get some shots of President Trump with this big flag and the people to kind of bring some, it's just like push-pull stuff and photos to make them look nice. And you can see it's kind of like the flags with President Trump, and it's all very dramatic. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm running into the flag and trying to get these pictures of people passing the flag around and shots through the flag with President Trump at the frame. Tons and tons of people as far as the eye can see. Like, I still don't know where he's standing, even as per my own pictures. So I figured he was even farther, which could have been the case. Another example of a picture, big flag, trying to get President Trump with the people and the flag and the protest, and very standard photo stuff. Get a nice swoop-de-doop-de here. I'm showing every single picture because I want you all to see very clearly the chain of events and the chain of the atmosphere that day, and if I just skipped right to all my Capitol building pictures, it would give a false impression, in my opinion. Maybe this is President Trump speaking here. Maybe that looks more like it. Maybe, who knows? There you go. It's that flag thing was a New Jersey thing before. So, at this time, you can see people are cold, it's windy, and he was saying the same stuff that he generally has said before. So, people started leaving. I was standing at the Washington Monument, and you could see the people starting to migrate towards the Capitol building. Now, it was 1 o'clock when that happened, 1 o'clock, 1:05, you could really start to see people moving over to the Capitol building, because that is when the vote certification began. And Trump was still speaking, so it actually gave this air of, wow, people are turning their backs on President Trump right now while he's speaking. Because there was hundreds, if not thousands of people leaving while he was speaking. And it just goes to show that some people were even interested in going to see him speak, but they were also interested in bringing their voice over to the Capitol building where the electoral votes were being certified. And this is the beginning of that kind of great migration away from President Trump's speech to the Capitol building. And I got some pictures of people just transferring. I'm trying to get pictures of people's flags and their groups. So as you can see, I'm leaving where the Washington Monument is. There's a large number of people starting to walk away. You can see some people on the lawn that are walking away, including the people in the foreground that are walking away. This is looking towards the Capitol building. I think this is called like Inauguration Path or the Inauguration Park. And you can see there was this mass exodus happening. It wasn't just a couple hundred people moving over to the Capitol building. It was thousands and thousands. It takes about 10 minutes to get there, maybe 15 from the Washington Monument and walking. I'm a quick walker, so it only took me like 10 or 12. So for somebody who was slow or in a group, it might have taken them 20 minutes to even get over there. But you can see there's this mass exodus because the other street was much more populated than I had been aware of, and they were walking in a huge group. They filled the whole street. You can see this other picture. Trump was still speaking at this time. You can see a lot of people are still standing around up here. But this was the amount of people moving over to the Capitol building. Look at all these people back here. They're also leaving, right? Swaths of people moving to the Capitol building because at this time they were certifying the electoral votes. And people wanted to go have their voice heard at the Capitol building instead of listening to Trump speak, which is totally fair. Filled street, everything's closed off. Capitol building's right here. People from everywhere, all of them walking towards the Capitol building. Here's some cops even right here, laughing and smiling and joking. Let's see. See some cops, they're just standing here talking with these protesters. So if at this time, which was probably around 1:10, 1:15, if there was a problem, I'm sure these cops would have been called as backup, or at least not been so focused on these protesters. More people with their flags. There's the other street. Just people migrating, migrating, migrating. This is not a small protest, people. So as we're approaching the Capitol building, I'm still behind the fountain / the pond pool. Somebody built the gallows, which is appropriate. Just this lady posing with the gallows in front of the Washington, or the Capitol building there. I'm trying to get waving flags. Now you can see, all right, first shots of the Capitol building. Now, because it was cold, I'm sure a lot of these people had their energy sapped already. If it was a hot, sunny day, people would have been able to stand around more. They would have had more energy. They probably would have, you know, there's a lot of would haves, but generally warm weather leads to more energy, in my opinion. You can see I'm across the pool here. There's already a large crowd formed at the base. Now this is the west side of the Capitol building. You can see there's a ton of people at the base already. And now when I showed up, I didn't hop any fences. I didn't push past any police officers. Everywhere I went was clear for me to walk through. Another zoom on the amount of people migrating from the Washington Monument to the Capitol building. It's a lot. People sitting by the pool. So as you can, like, not everybody there was all riled up to get to the Capitol building and throw eggs at people. There's a vast majority of people that were there just sitting and watching. It was not a ravenous mob squeezing the life out of the Capitol building. It was some pressure at the front and a lot of spectators. Now you can see there's just people sitting around on the walls and stuff. You can see a little bit of fence here in this bottom left-hand corner. There's some fence there, but people were freely walking up the lawn. There's a little bit of fencing here, but people were walking up to the lawn and the base of this Capitol building. This is open right here. You can see these two gates are open. I don't know any video. I haven't seen any video of people ripping that apart because, as I said, when I showed up, I was walking just freely. I didn't hop any fences. I didn't have to do anything like that. I was just walking freely. These people had erected this big Trump banner with the metal. So you can see these gates. I think this is more of a ramp because you can see it's like a handicap ramp. So I don't think these gates were for the protest. There's no gates in this picture. And this is people walking up to where the lawn is, which was the front of the west side. This guy's waving people forward. Let's go forward. You can see his hand movements. Forward, forward, let's go. So you can see the scaffolding is not occupied. None of this upper area is occupied. Maybe this was around 1:30. It's just an estimate, but it's probably a bit closer than you think because by the time I walked here and leaving Trump, I moved here because of the electoral votes. And at 1 o'clock or 1:05, I was like, no, I've heard Trump speak before. I'm going to go watch the electoral certification and see the ramifications of that because he can do a rally next week and those are not novel pictures anymore. I was more concerned with the Congress people and Vice President Mike Pence and what they were doing with the votes and the certification. So remember, as you just seen, I walked up, and there was already a scene here. So the line of cops starts. You can see some police right here. There's a wall here right underneath this M60 President Trump. This is the edge of the cop line. There's a lot of scaffolding here. Nobody is climbing this scaffolding yet. There are some police in depth. But look at this scaffolding. If I was American and not taking pictures, I probably would have been climbing the scaffolding to get pictures. And I totally would have been able to because of the lack of police presence. They might have shot at me with pepper balls or something. But if they didn't, I would have been up here if I wanted to in a jiffy. So there's clearly a lack of security present. They're still tear gassing people, of course. This guy is tear gassed, pepper sprayed, whatever. Now, one thing I noticed is that when I came up here, the police line was very thin. They had some high ground, of course, but the police line, there's just a flight of stairs here. You can see some gating, but there was just a small, 6 stairs that go up to the first level of all the granite or the stone or whatever this is. And you can see the police line is only one layer thin with a barrier. One layer thin with a barrier. That was the situation. You can see there's still a barrier here, but there's not a thick amount of police. There was a guy that ran past me, and people started screaming, "He's Antifa, he's Antifa." I can't remember if this was what the picture was aimed at, but there was a guy who ran very quickly past me, and the whole crowd started chanting, "Antifa, Antifa, Antifa." So, and it looks like people got a wave of pepper spray here, because people, or CS gas. You can see everybody covering their eyes. CS gas is tear gas, pardon me, of tear gas. Lots of flags. People still out with their phones, right? This shows people just casually standing around with. Oh, look here. Here's a cop spraying people with this gas, or the pepper spray, and people just have their phones out. There's no dire situation at this point, but this cop actually walks up under this structure. So this is, I didn't even notice this before, but he's underneath this structure, and we'll see where the line changes and extends to in later pictures. You can see I'm pretty sure protesters were way more concerned with yelling at cops and waving their flags than they were causing trouble. And there was no barriers up till this point, right? So these people just walked up to this line of police. There's maybe one or two cops thick of this line. So they didn't have reinforcements. I guess they didn't need reinforcements at this point because the crowd was not pushing anything. At least in this spot, they were not. A little bit of shouting matches, whatever. People were getting pepper sprayed. I didn't see why they were pepper spraying. I didn't really see anybody throwing things at the police or grabbing stuff. So I'm sure the police have their reasons for tear gassing people and spraying people. You can still see here the cop line is pretty thin. They have control of where the base of this line is right here, this structure. But there is just a single line of cops and a barrier. This is me turning around and looking back towards the Washington Monument, just getting some pictures of, these are the people standing back and watching, right? They're standing around like this guy's got his hands in his pockets. No dire situation. People coming up and yelling at the cops. Big deal, it's protests. As you can see, there's only one layer cops thick. These guys aren't even wearing riot gear. This guy's got his helmet on still. Well, I guess they all do. But people occupying the structure. People, you'll see in later pictures that people were just climbing this through the staircase on the left-hand side. I'm trying to get some pictures of some people's faces. This lady was pretty hyped up, you know, screaming people to move forward and stuff. You can see these people occupy this structure, but I don't see anybody throwing things at the cops. I see them yelling things, waving their flags. This guy's got a sharp pole. Oh, look, it's Viking guy. There's Viking guy. He's got a sharp pole, and he wasn't spearing anybody, as far as I'm aware of. I didn't get any pictures of that. I just assumed this guy got tear gas because he's got his eyes closed and he's stressed out. But look at this lady. Back to the barrier. Right? No pressure, no dire situations. She's not getting grabbed or shoved by the police. So even at this point, it's very clearly peaceful. Maybe this was the part where they're talking about the Antifas, but people were climbing this stuff. They're just trying to get their voices heard. They're trying to see what's going on. There's a camera right here. People clearly didn't mind being seen. And now remember my other pictures, the police had control up until the corner of this structure, the very base of it and the front. So these guys are all up here. They're not getting shot by pepper balls. This person's hanging out right on the wire. Nothing dire happening, nothing crazy, no extreme tension. There's the same lady again. Cops just leaning up against the barrier. Nothing dire, nothing crazy. A lot of yelling, a lot of noise. People lighting their smokes. People sitting back. Right? People are just hanging around. This guy just chilling. People relaxed. People chilling. Nobody's screaming. Nothing is crazy violent. This guy's just got his arms crossed. More people climbing. They're trying to get up. These two press people came through. Looked like they were a little pumped up from getting tear gassed or something. These people controlled this structure, and I don't know if the cops pushed these guys back, but there's people facing the other way from the cops, which I'm going to keep pointing out. People are just recording. This guy's precariously perched, just recording video. If there was extreme violence, these people would not be hanging around on these structures, balancing themselves like this, looking away from the cops and the danger. This is me just trying to get like a flag battle picture. That's what these series of photos are for. Now, I was standing on the south side of that west lawn near that first staircase for a while because I was trying to feel out the crowd and see if anything was going to pop off. I wanted to be able to get away really quickly and not have been just walking through aimlessly. I came in and then I stayed where I came in because I knew the way out very quickly. After I realized that the situation wasn't as crazy as I thought and it was just a simple protest, I decided to walk to the north side of that structure that all those people were occupying and just check out the other side of the conflict. And this is where it started to get more interesting because, as you can see when I approached the right side scaffolding, which is the south scaffolding on the west side, the protesters were not climbing it. It wasn't even covered with this white cloth. So But for whatever reason, this side was the weak side, and the people had punched their way under the scaffolding up the stairs to get closer to the Capitol. And you can see people are turned around, they're fixing their stuff. There's a bit of yelling. This guy's turned around. This guy's laughing right here. And this is the close to the front. I'm sure the cops are right there. So I'm making my way over to the left side, and this was a lot more there. We have a lot more police here now, but we still only have a line of police, maybe 1 to 2 police thick, even though they have reinforcements behind them. This cop's just filming stuff. Now this scaffolding was a point of contention. This cop is taking pictures, I guess. This scaffolding was a real point of contention, and you'll see in the future pics why. But you can see the cop line. There's just a few cops up here. There's 1 or 2 cops thick with a line. I don't even know if they had a fence on this left side. We'll see later. But even at this point, they didn't have a ton of reinforcements, and it still didn't seem as intense as it seemed when I saw some videos online. You can see there's just a few cops here. This cop has nobody behind him or beside him except for this guy. So they're barely even standing shoulder to shoulder in some spots. They have shields, but it's not a huge wall of cops even at this point. And you can see that the scaffolding is breached underneath. And you'll see here in the next few pictures what's going on. You can see some cops have interest in this north side, west face of the Capitol building. This cop up on the right on the I don't know, structure. He wasn't pepper spraying continuously. He wasn't even really yelling at a lot of people. People were yelling at him, and he was shrugging his shoulders and stuff. So more evidence to the contrary that this was extremely violent and extremely chaotic. Now this guy jumped up onto the scaffolding, and in order to open up a new hole to allow more people to flood in faster, he took a knife out and he was cutting away the white barrier. So you can see they were done up with zip ties, and these people were cutting the zip ties, or this was just not completed with construction and it was already open. But this guy chose instead to attack the actual white cloth vinyl stuff. And here you can see horn guy, Viking guy right there. People turned around, people looking away. There was definitely pepper balls hitting that vinyl. I could hear it impacting. This guy is still cutting the barrier away with his knife. So he's trying to promote more people access under the scaffold by cutting it away with his knife. And right here you can see this guy's got some tear gas, pepper spray stuff in his hair. Mr. Knife. Here's the cop that I was mentioning, just standing on top of the structure. They have their can of pepper spray in their hand, but you can tell by the body language there's no need for aggression. This cop wasn't pointing at people. In fact, this cop was like, hey, like, stop saying such rude things to me, right? That's what that is. Just the, you know, no dire situation, no extreme tension. You can see it in the body language. Remember, this is the north side of the west face scaffolding. Lots of cameras, lots and lots of cameras. People climbing the scaffolding, not even too crazy. They did get a barrier out here on this corner. And you can see nothing crazy is going on. This guy's fiddling with his phone on the front line. This is right in front of a cop. He's fiddling on his phone. They're not beating people with billy clubs. They were spraying them with pepper spray and stuff. But more evidence to the contrary that still, up until this point, there was no extreme tension on the front line. There was just a lot of yelling, and there was some pepper spray. There was some action under the scaffolding here. People were just getting pepper sprayed, and there would be a wave of people that turn around and they're trying to get out. It was super packed in there. I don't blame anybody for turning around and wanting to get out, because this was just packed person to person. Now we can see my original picture. The police line was at the edge of this structure. There's the picture of the cop pepper spraying people right beside the front support. So they have been pushed back considerably, maybe 7 to 10 meters. They have lost ground, but the amount of police that they have reinforced with now is very, very high. This was not the case. They must have just sent a big wave of cops in, because when I turned around, I didn't even go into the scaffolding at this point, but when I had turned around, there was a huge wave of cops. People getting either pepperballed or sprayed, climbing the trusses. You can see there's a staircase here, and people are just climbing around. People at the scaffolding. This guy looks like he's trying to tell people to come forward. You can see how packed it is. Here's Viking guy. Inside the scaffolding. I still hadn't gone into the scaffolding. I was waiting to figure out how it was going to play out, because I didn't want to be in there. And I didn't even know where the front line was inside the scaffolding. I was just being patient before I advanced, because I didn't want to get caught up in something really, really crazy if I didn't have to. So a little bit of patience was just helping me feel out the situation. And I deduced that it still was not very dire. This guy was screaming very, very intensely, come on, move forward. He was shaking when he was screaming. And this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm trying to capture human emotion, right? This passion, this yelling. This is the kind of picture I really, really come for. And this is what I was always originally aiming to capture. I thought this kind of reaction and emotional passion was going to come from Trump's speech and revealing some new evidence, but it did not. It came from the Capitol building. People walking up the stairs. People climbing the scaffolding. It's very easy to climb. Lots of places to grab. It's pretty safe. It's holding up all those people, right? People waving their flags. I still have not entered the scaffolding. Now, as I mentioned, I still haven't gone into the scaffolding. I took a few shots inside the scaffolding. Now, this is the first picture I think I have that really shows some sort of removal of structure. Now I'm going to show you something, because there's a lot of people that have been saying that Antifa were identifying themselves with backward MAGA hats. Now what does that guy look like? Backward MAGA hat, zero identity, right? This is the kind of person that we would be paying attention to. Now, I did not think about this going into this action, that there was going to be Antifa masquerading. I just kind of already knew it, but without taking a conscious second to think, keep an eye out for people wearing backwards hats, or, which I didn't know at the time, but keep an eye out for people causing trouble, because they're most likely Antifa, and there's generally a combination of totally hiding your identity and causing damage or being over the top. And this is just an example of what that person would dress like. I'm not saying this guy is Antifa, but so this is now the first example of somebody tearing down a barricade that I had experienced. I checked out inside the scaffolding. This looked like a couple or something, and I was thinking I could get a nice couple photo. So people are getting tear gassed. You can see there's an old vet here helping people out. He got pepperballed or tear gassed, and he's helping out his buddies or the other protesters, just clearing their eyes with water. Lots of people. This is a little platform that was close to the police, and you can see this little hole is the police line. But there was a separate area where you could stand up and have a bit of a high advantage with. I don't know if you could see through the plastic, but that spot did exist. People climbing, you can see top center. People were climbing up the trusses. This is actually, I think, the guy I just pointed out. That he was Antifa, the red gloves, green jacket, no identity. He's got his cowboy boots. I'm not saying he's Antifa. I'm just saying Antifa hallmarks right there. He's got quite the weathered flag, though, so I think that's like bonus points for him. People climbing. Climb. It's very sturdy to climb on this kind of scaffolding. I would climb this without a second of worry or nervousness. And the police line is right up here. And look, there's people that have a high ground on the police, and they're not throwing bottles at them. They're not throwing stuff. They're not stabbing them with flags. They're just yelling, right? So that means it's a lot more peaceful than you think it was. So I turned around. I'm inside the scaffolding now, and I turned around just to see what the crowd looked like. You can see at the top of the scaffolding, the police line isn't even that long. They had like maybe 7 cops really covering this whole area, and there was a barricade. You can see a Viking guy right here at the front. And this is, I think, one of the only pictures I have of people really spearing the cops with flags. It's this one, pardon me. Because you can see this Trump flag is attacking this police shield. There's a bit of contact. I don't know who that connects to. Look at all these videos. Who knows who saw what? Some scuffles. You can see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's only less than double-digit amount of cops, at least in this photo, and one barrier to hold back thousands of people. So there was a very obvious understaffing, under-preparation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 cops, look, and they're getting hit with tear gas. They're getting sprayed with stuff. So you can lose. These police aren't wearing gas masks. A single wave of CS gas or tear gas would have wiped everything out, including the cops. They were using tear gas. And if they wanted to stop this protest, they could have just tear gassed everything, in my opinion. And there was not enough tear gas and pepper spray from riot cops. There was not enough people with gas masks on the protester side, I think, to overpower the police force. You can see this back lawn here. So when I was shooting, this back lawn still hadn't been punctured either. The police still had control of it. Like, there's this chair here. It's just sitting here unmolested. There's two cops that can't even stand shoulder to shoulder with each other to block this lawn. Yet, the people still have not just walked past these cops, right? So this is another indication for low violence, low stress, no hair trigger moments. This was busy, but you can see in other places, even right beside it, it was not chaotic. This was basically the front line of the north side of the west lawn. You can see these police here. Their barrier was starting to collapse. These people are holding onto the barrier. They're pulling it down. They're pulling it apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We still have less than 24 police, 11 cops there, trying to hold back these thousands of people. That's a choke point, so it's easier than you think, but underprepared much? Casual people. This guy's not even looking at the front of the protest. These people have the barrier in their hands, but was not exceptionally dire. Things weren't happening super fast, which just goes to show that this was more relaxed and less aggressive than could be portrayed. Still a very few amount of cops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see there's a bit of a barrier battle here. One of these cops was billy clubbing people right up at the front. I think it was this guy, if I remember. Which, they're cops. I mean, it was this guy for sure, right in the middle. He was billy clubbing people, and I mean, yeah, it's a protest. Don't grab the barrier, don't get billy clubbed. This guy looks like he's texting right now. So how can you be in an extremely dangerous situation right at the very front? I wasn't on the other side. I never went to the east side. But on the west side, this is the farthest they were, right? And this guy's just texting. Where's the urgency? Where's the extreme danger? These people are starting to pull apart these barriers. This guy has a baton. I don't know if this is a cop that dropped the baton, but somebody's holding a baton right here. So that's probably in trouble. This is another example of an Antifa. All black helmet, no identity, but attempting to hijack the symbology to paint people in a bad light. This person might not be Antifa, but I'm pointing out the hallmarks of an Antifa operating under the guise of somebody who would support the Confederate flag, or just slap one on their helmet to demonize what the flag means. And when he goes and does bad, dangerous things, they're going to say that person was wearing the Confederate flag on their helmet when they were a bad actor. And they don't care about the flag. They just care about producing bad images, right? And you can see these cops have now gotten pushed back to this wall, this corner. So either there's no barricade here left, or they weren't willing to stand there against the crowd. And you can see people, there was this guy that was texting. It's a suspect enough, eh? He was texting, and now he's just climbing over the barrier. These cops are holding it back. These cops are holding the corner. But they are losing this front line right here. Cops with their riot shields. This guy looks like he's over the barrier. This could be an example of another Antifa. All black, no ID. I don't think it's a coincidence they're hanging out with each other. This guy is definitely past where that barricade was now, Mr. Flag here. There's still this cop. So now they're separated. You can see this cop is over here on the right. These cops are pulled back to the corner on the left. A little bit of forward momentum for the protesters. But still not dire enough, apparently, for this guy to need to pay attention to the front. He's turning around and laughing. This guy's got a black can of something. Golf Foxtrot Yankee. Who are ye? Here's a cop with some pepper spray through the little thing here. They've pushed the barrier out of the way. These black, faceless actors, 3 out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're thinking, you know, 1/3, or correction, 1/4 of the people in the photo could potentially be dressed as bad actors right at the front as it's being penetrated. I got the photos to prove it. What do you want? Maybe pepper spray, I don't know, but look, they have definitely gotten up to this front now. I went back down to just see what it looked like down at the base because I guess I didn't want to be near the front as they were breaking it in case something extreme happened up there, because when you're making ground, there's going to be tension and pressure and potentially violence or flying kinetic energy. I just want to take a step back and say, if it's going to get dicey up there, I want to be away from it, because if it gets dicey, I don't want to be right at the front and then get caught up in a stampede. And this spot right here offered me a very safe place to just stand. And you can see the police brought out barricade, because in those pictures before, there were people and police officers just hanging out. They still lost their ground at the base of this structure, and they hadn't regained it. But this was definitely a lot more action-y, right? Pepper spray flying, there's gas in the air. People look like they're injured. People are helping out injured people. They're probably pushing the barricade forward. They have real riot police here now, instead of just this single line of bicycle cops. People are injured. People are screaming. This guy's got his eyes closed, probably tear gassed and just yelling with his eyes closed. Still a lot of people just filming. This guy's still climbing stuff. So even at the front, this was just a tension at the front, and there was no, from what I can see, extremely dire situations. This guy's just up at the front with his hands up. This guy's got his hands in his pockets. There's just a level of non-violence that's very observable, other than just the odd, you know, probably billy club and the spray of the CS gas, tear gas, pepper spray. This guy brought the horn out. I don't know if they used it. I wasn't really paying attention to that. Now this person grabbed a fire extinguisher from somewhere and was using it to cloud out the police. Nobody stopped him, from what I understand. I tried to get some pictures, and a lot of them were blurry. But there were people causing a little bit of mayhem like this. Like, I don't agree with using a fire extinguisher like that myself. I think it's kind of a waste of a fire extinguisher. But, I mean, it smoked him out for a second. Riot police with shields. People standing on top of a barrier. This is turned around, looking at people. People laughing, texting. bullhorning. Dude's on his phone right here. Now this is that north side west scaffolding I was talking about. And people climbed, you can tell people are climbing it. This guy's not even standing on a platform, he's standing still up on the truss. This guy cut himself a little hole just to stick out of and take some video. More people yelling and screaming, and this was a lot of this got cut. As you can see, this was all cut away. This was rolled away. This was zip ties cut away, maybe. This cop's still standing up here. Not actively beating people, just standing there. And now they have a high ground, but notice they were not using the high ground and constantly throwing things at the police. They took the high ground just to yell louder and wave their flag from a higher perspective. Like this guy's climbing up just to yell louder and get a better vantage point, but they didn't use the height to throw things at police. There's clearly something going on right here. This guy looked like he got hurt or hit or whatever. He was pretty keeled over. You can see somebody waving people to come forward right there with his orange gloves. People giving their thumbs up. A little bit of tear gas, pepper spray action. Look at this guy. He's standing there laughing with a stick. And we're going to zoom on this guy. I'm going to show you here, even though they were still spraying pepper spray and stuff, look at this guy. He's not looking at the cop. He has his own pole. Where's the violence? Why isn't this guy hitting the police? People just yelling. Lots of people just yelling. Yelling is not violence. Yelling is just yelling and getting your voice heard. Whoop. Excuse me, I accidentally closed it. So this is when I returned to where they had breached before, on the north side of the west face of the Capitol building. People are still up on the trusses. People are starting to funnel up the stairs. You can see this is where that battle was with the police before. You can still see the barricades there. But now people are freely walking up the side of the Capitol building. You can see people are going up the stairs here. This is the guy that was yelling before, telling people to move forward. So now I'm climbing and moving forward myself to get pictures of the action. Here's people flooding up those stairs. There's Viking guy actually right there. So this is closer to the front than I think, because this Golf Foxtrot Yankee guy was at the front the whole time. And you can see his helmet and Mr. Viking here. So this is probably still the front line, but I was not at the front. I was not 1 to 2 people away from the front, so I'm not sure if that was the edge. I climbed the stairs when I could. You can see it's just packed wall to wall with people, but these people are still turned around, laughing, getting their pictures. These guys are turned around, laughing, looking at their pictures, so there's nothing in front of them so dire, so dangerous that they could not look away. getting more clogged. People are starting to push up now. I don't see any police in this picture. There's Viking guy still right here, right on the edge of the wall and the stairs. So this is maybe where the police are, but you can see they have a foothold at the top of the stairs. And once it felt safe, I went up the stairs myself. But until then, I was just taking pictures of people making headway up the stairs. So now I'm going up the stairs myself. There's nobody, there's no fences in the way, there's no police in the way. I just walked up. I didn't have to hop anything. And now we're on the top of the Capitol. So this is probably the first kind of exposure of people punching through and being allowed / making their way to the top of this Capitol building. And you can see there's even Viking guy right here. So if Viking guy was not even inside yet, we're still quite early into the situation. And there's people running around, I'm guessing looking for places to get inside. These doors are shut right here in the middle. I think this was a pair of doors or a set of windows in this, which you'll get a closer look at later. But it's not too busy up here. There's even a scaffolding here, untouched, that would take people to the next level. I don't know if it was operational, but this is, how can you have a solid prepared plan when your motor lift is just down where the protesters are? Gross negligence. So this guy's at the front of the door here on the very left side of the screen. These people have not punctured these doors. Viking guy is right in the center. Nope, he's not inside the Capitol building. I don't know if he was at the front line of that, but... So now I'm looking at the center, and I moved over this way, and notice my pictures are not past the police. I saw these 4 police here. I'm not interested in trying to get past them, obviously. I'm interested in getting pictures, but this still shows that the protesters had occupied the top, but they still only had 4 police for this northwest part of the Capitol building. And these cops are walking away, so there's no dire situation here where people are trying to bust into these doors. They don't even have a barricade established. So I went up these stairs, and these 2 female officers were yelling at me to get back, which I did immediately, but I still snapped a picture. And you can see how big this crowd was. It's not super clear because those people were yelling at me. The officers were yelling at me, but the protesters have the scaffolding. When I say we, I'm just talking about not the police. I'm just talking about the people that were there. This protest extends all the way down the street. 3-4 blocks, there's people. The back of the fountain is filled. The front of the protest is filled with people. It was massive. And this still doesn't do it justice. So now people are freely walking up around the Capitol building, right? No police in sight. I didn't even take any of these bottles of water. I did not touch anything. I didn't even look at a bottle of water and think free stuff and grab it. That is how removed I was from the situation and not intent on disturbing anything physically. I showed you the picture before of the 2 police officers holding the lawn, and this is the lawn I was talking about. There was some sort of structure here that was destroyed, but you can see that this protest goes very, very, very far back. There's a little statue here for reference. But you can see this protest didn't even end all the way back there. It was not a small crowd of like 1,000 people causing trouble. This is probably 1/3 of the entire protests, and people who wanted to hear Trump's speech are migrate to the Capitol building. I don't know what Trump's speech situation was at this point in time because I was not checking that. I was way too busy looking for pictures to get. So you can see people are just free climbing these kinds of grabbing spots. People are walking up the sides of the buildings. People are up on the truss on the top. And this is that same lawn I mentioned. People were just free climbing because the stairs were totally clogged. And, I mean, it's a pretty confident free climb if I was to say so myself. I'd climb that pretty confidently. And there's people at the top. Now, this is the people that came up the stairs on that northwest side. So they were already up there, but I guess the stairs were so clogged and people were so amped up to get up on the wall to protest a little closer to the Capitol building. They were willing to free climb, right? I think this is almost more fun and a more novel. I'm not American, so I can't tell you the depth of the emotion of these people climbing these walls like this. But I think the desperation of people trying to get their voice heard and participate in the protest is evident with this kinds of actions. You can see people helping people up, climbing the wall. These are just your average Joes. I even have pictures of these old guys climbing the wall. This guy's gotten pepper sprayed. He's feeling it. I don't know what he did. Or he got tear gassed. I don't know, but he was feeling it. I'll put it that way. So you can see this door is open. I'm going to get a good zoom on this one. This door is open, but it's open because the police are walking around. If you can find a video of the police opening these doors up for these protesters, good on you. But I didn't see who was going into these doors, but there was a period of time where these doors were not locked, and there was people freely able to enter, clearly. The door's open, and it looks like people are walking into the Capitol. You'd have to find another reference video and reference who is in the shots. Now, look at these cops here. These cops came around this left corner, right? And we're walking up to this door, and you can tell the crowd is not totally focused on these police. These police are casually walking. They don't have to be holding on to each other. They didn't need shields. They casually just walked through the protesters and went inside. So, another example of there was no extreme sense of urgency. Those cops did not feel threatened. They didn't need tons of backup. This was not as bad as they say. That door is still open, so I don't know what's taking these police so long to close it. Get some flag waving pictures, of course. That door is still open on the right. Here, look at this guy. This is not just a group of young bucks climbing the wall, storming the Capitol. This is your average American trying to protest and make their voice heard. And if this guy needed to climb the wall to get that done, that's what he was doing. More people shaking hands. She's not even looking towards the front. There's not a stack of people up here at these doors. People just helping each other climb. People want to wave their flags. And this was as close to the front as you could get, really. As far as the northwest side is concerned. Like I said, I never went to the east side. I don't know what happened on the other side of the building at all. I came from the Washington Monument where I was taking pictures last. And this is the west side connecting to that Washington Monument. So this is the side I stuck to. I didn't even run around the Capitol building. I was on this side the entire time. Tons and tons of people. People just want to wave their flags. People climbing up the side. People standing around, moseying around. This guy's just casually walking on his phone. It was not a... I hope the pictures just speak for themselves. So we can take a peek here at their wall. And you can see the amount of people up here is still very high, but they were not willing to bust past this barrier of cops. And we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 3, 4, 5 cops covering this side, but there were already hundreds of people up here. These police are just casually walking around. This guy's just holding his vest. There's no threat to them, even though they're surrounded by protesters. They're just casually standing there. This guy's just leaning up on the guardrail like he doesn't care at all. This cop just leaning up on the guardrail. This guy's still having a hard time. Look at this guy. He's just laughing. This is all fun. This is just part of America, I guess. There's this lady really trusting this guy, and this guy is holding on to these guys. Like, this is just... Nobody was getting shot at. Nobody on this side was getting pepperballed. People just here for some pictures. People are turned around, hands in their pockets. This guy's just like that modern... Yeah, exactly. So here's that left door that was open. Now these police came through and they again casually walked through. I think I actually saw a couple empty water bottles get thrown at these cops. And look, they're doing the thing. So as they're traversing this opening, they have to hold on to each other, right? Because, you know, he might feel threatened. So these cops clearly are aware that if there's a bit of a situation, the old grab on the armor to link and become a unit is there. They know to do that. But even this cop is less concerned. He doesn't feel pressured to hold on to his teammates. So this still was not, you know, an exceptionally crazy scenario where a police officer would show up and people were beating them. These cops got booed or, you know, ooh, whatever. See, look. Oh, yeah, you know, the cops. Hey. But look, even though this door has some pressure around it, the vast majority of people are still turning around to yell and chant at the police that casually walking away, right? So even the front of these doors was not a dire situation. People laughing, people smiling. People were up on this scaffolding and they were just standing on it, like waiting in line almost to get inside. Just make sure I'm still recording here. Sweet. Those doors are not open. I actually think it was a window that was smashed. And this window was broken. So I'm sure you can go find a video of somebody breaking the window, you know. So those windows are broken, but people are still, I don't think they were getting in. You'd have to go find some other video to confirm that. People were stomping their feet. You can see everybody's got their feet picked up here. That's kind of a cool little detail. These people ran in to get a pose and a picture They were trying to pose, but I ran away too quick. And you can see people were picking their feet up, stomping. They're just trying to be heard. This is the front. No, I don't think these people were flooding in here. I think I got one little overhead shot. This guy's just chanting, Save America, Protect America, whatever you expect, you know, protesters to say. You can see, look, people aren't looking at this window. These cops are fiddling around. This is not a dire point of contention where people are ripping the wood off and they're trying to bust in here. But you can see that there's protesters inside. This is actually the first time I noticed that. Look at that. You can see there's protesters behind these police, and they're just twiddling their thumbs, twiddling their fingers. Look, there's protesters inside the building right now. What does that say? More people cheering, chanting, still not going through those doors. So I went back around the stairs, and this is the staircase I originally came up, that northwest flight of stairs. Just trying to capture some human emotion coming up the stairs. You can see the depth of the protest and the amount of people. Once again, you can see how far this protest goes. All the way. People flying their flags. People just want to fly their flags and be heard. Still no intense violence. I don't see anybody lighting anything on fire. So I went back up to the Capitol building after getting some crowd pics, and this looked like some sort of militia. They seemed like they were all hanging out together. A little group. Waving their flags. Look there. This guy is so occupied with waving his flag. Even if they're a group and they're like a collected little team, the dude's got his hands in his pockets. Where is the militia, the right-wing militia going to bust stuff up? These guys are sitting there. That guy's got his twisted tea ready to go. That's what they're concerned. Oh, that's funny. There's another crowd shot. Looks like they moved up from the last time I saw them. But the police still clearly own this bottom part. Kind of. Because look, you got a protest up here. I think this protester climbed up. And he's yelling, but these cops don't really care about this protester up here. So how dire does this seem when they're not willing to really get this guy off or detain him, even though he has gone up a level? Look, this guy, he's getting pushed. Okay, that guy's getting pushed. But she's not even pepper spraying these people. This guy's freely standing up here. These protesters are moseying around, right? More examples of the lack of required aggression and focus to not get hurt. People are showing up to wave their flags. Now, because the wind was so crazy, and you can tell because the flags are waving, if they were shooting tear gas, every now and again there would just be a wave of gas that came back and just hit everybody, and you'll see that the cops... they're in their own... This might have been a fire extinguisher, but they were in their own tear gas, and they were getting hit by their own stuff, and you can see some cops covering their face, getting water poured on them. Lots of protesters. This is me getting the America flag, America pictures. America, America. As I said, these are originals, so some of them are just underexposed. But you can just see the mass of people. I still have pictures to edit, so. Once again, so this is up on the scaffolding where those two police women were pointing and shouting at me in that one picture. This door is now closed, so there's no entry and exit right here. I don't know if they're still entering and exiting around here, because it looked like the police had that window, those two sets of broken windows controlled. But the population on top has grown dramatically since I got up there. So you can just see that there was this never-ending stream of people coming up. But people are still moseying around. And now up on the bleachers, and you can see that they were inside the Capitol. They're coming out. They're looking to take pictures. I did not go inside the Capitol. That is just asking to get ambushed, cut off, arrested, detained. There was no reason for me to go in there other than my own belief that my talents of taking pictures could have been useful inside the Capitol building. But there were so many people with cameras, and I was like, yeah, I'll let the Americans take pictures of the inside of their own buildings. I was not comfortable with going inside. Believe me, I really wanted to, because I love chasing the idea of the picture. But even me going into the Capitol building didn't seem appropriate or safe for me. You can see these cops are hanging around up here. This guy's got a silenced weapon. Silencer. So he had a gun. He's got a gun. But there was no need to use it. At least at this point. But these protesters were inside the Capitol. Something to think about. People want to get inside and just hoist a flag. Like that's it. More people climbing the scaffolding. And now remember, I told you when I showed up and I pointed this out, that this scaffolding does not have a cover on it, but people were not climbing it even though there was a crowd established. And it only took a very long time before people found the energy to climb it. So there was no large group of people trying to take high ground, trying to advance the front line with desperation and speed and aggression. There was nothing like that. There was evidence to the contrary. And you can see almost everybody here is turned around. So I'm guessing there was a big wave of tear gas, and you can see the cops are themselves. And this is what I'm talking about. The wind was crazy. These police are all coughing up, getting hit with their own stuff. It's funny. Oh, there's a press guy. People are climbing up the wall, but with this zoom pass, you'll see a lot of people are turned around. People are trying to take pictures. They're all trying to escape tear gas, I'm guessing. You can see the huge amount of people that are all turned around here. So, this is the spot I was talking about where I have the picture of those 3 or 4 cops guarding it casually. There was no barricade erected. And they had some reinforcements to cover this top part. But there's a barricade. These people are either trying to dismantle it or whatever. I don't know. I just have a still. You'd have to go find some photos yourself or some video. But there was still a clear path into the Capitol. People were walking in here. I don't see any cops stopping them. But you can see protesters are inside the Capitol building for sure. Going to take pictures, going to get their photo ops. Going to wave a flag. People are still flooding in here. This is that human emotion I'm talking about. That I really like to capture. Protesters getting inside the Capitol building. More people are starting to show up on different levels of the Capitol building. Cops are having a hard time. They're just in some conflict. So you can see there's a front line. People are climbing here. And there's still just yelling at the cops. This guy's kind of casually filming. They have a really strong position right here with these stairs because it's such a tight choke point. And now you can see this police, like we have a high ground on the police right here, but people still were not flooding into this area. So there's no reason, and there was no extreme pressures to take every inch of ground possible. There was this real casualness to the whole thing. There was this real like lack of extreme tension. There was this lack of large groups of people willing to make aggressive moves to go attack people or remove them. You can see that there's still cops here. They're still covering this staircase. People getting up there, they're waving their flags. And I think it's important that I was here and I made these moves to get a picture like this. This is, I think this day is going to turn out to be a very, very, very important day in history, and I'm really grateful that I was there to get these pictures and to capture what happened up there. First Amendment, right there. Once again, look at, we have, these protesters have control of this top area, but they're still not willing to just hop down a tiny little thing here and go and rush these stairs or get these cops dislodged from their position. There's a serious lack of isolating cops, attacking cops, ambushing them, taking high ground from them to turn around and attack them. There was such a lack of that. Like I said, there was this casualness, and that's why I've stuck around this whole time, because there was never a point I felt where there was such an escalation that I said, it's really time for me to leave, at least up until this point. And there was a bit of a battle right here. There was a cop swinging his club at one of these people. Maybe it was that guy, I'm not sure. But I saw a few swings, but look, these cops still have their backs to these protesters. The protesters have let the cops walk away. There's no speed and aggression. These guys are casually walking away. They have the door covered, which is fine. This guy thought it was appropriate to take his mask off and yell, so there's no direct threat of pepper mace or pepper spray or mace or tear gas from those cops covering the door. That they're just maybe even exchanging, yelling at each other, right? They don't have their clubs out, ready to go at a moment's notice. These people, hands in their pockets, texting, fiddling around. Now we're getting close to the end here. And I had switched sides because I was on the north side pretty much the entire time. I figured it would be apt for me to get to the south side, or just move more south to the other thing of the scaffolding to get some new angles. Got a nice picture of the flag with the entrance, you know, simple photos like that. Now, once again, I did not enter the Capitol building. I got very close, but I never went in. People are saying move forward. We have high ground. There's no cops here. You can see that it's not super densely packed. Nobody's smashing these windows. Where's the people smashing those windows to get in? The level and the concentration of violence was extremely focused. Those are those stairs that the cops were holding very adamantly for a long time. I'm just getting some overhead shots. This is the closest I got to going inside because I just wanted to see if I could get a picture of what was happening. And it looks like, I don't know, you just have to go confirm yourself, but it looks like the protesters have a free way in. And they might have been flooding in, but they weren't just walking in quickly. So there might have been some pressure or choke points for them to stop. But this is the closest I got. You can see the glass is smashed right there. I don't see any cops clearly at the end of this tunnel, so they might have been moving in freely. This is the only time I asked somebody to wave a flag. I asked this guy to wave his flag, and he did a kind of really non-enthusiastic job, so I kind of stopped. It was the only time I asked anybody to do something for a photo op. And like I said, he didn't have the energy I was looking for, so I was like, oh, thanks. People casually standing, waving their flags around. Almost done. This is me, so you can see the scaffolding I came up was this opposite side, and they had brought that huge American flag up to fly it. Look, there's a kid up here. Oh wait, maybe that's not a kid. Huge protest, big protest, big protest. Lots of people, no cops visible down here. So at this point, the Capitol's pretty much taken over, other than this. I think that's the south side of the west face. And you can see that they have a barricade here. The opposite side of the stairs I went up and that were clogged. So we can see that the right side was quite a lot, or the south side of the west face was a lot more fortified than the north side of the west face. There's still clogs of people, but this lady is turned around. She's not even facing the right way, indicating again that there was nothing really, really crazy going on. This guy's got his club in his hands. He's not swinging at people actively. This lady's turned around with her back point blank to the cop. People yelling at each other, but once again, another example of this relatively controlled, casual situation, not one of dire consequence, life and death. I'm trying to get that big flag up there. But at this point, once I saw this guy and these guys take the bleachers, this was my cue that I did not feel comfortable. Now you can see this guy's got mags, and he looks like he's got a pepper gun, but he had mags, and it looked like these guys really meant business. And this was the first hint of them retaking ground that they had lost. But this guy, look, this person is still casually crossing their legs, more yelling. But this was my cue to leave, because the crowd behind me was so packed that if all of a sudden they were taking, this was just the first demonstration that, okay, you know, we're taking back what we're looking for, the things that we lost, which was the scaffolding, right? This is where the two lady police were telling me to get back from originally. Once they started taking it back, I was like, you know what, I'm going to leave now. But right when somebody popped a smoke grenade, of course, there's just a few more pictures to get on the way out. And it was so packed that I actually had to climb down the scaffolding to get out, because I felt it was time to leave myself. My camera was running out of batteries and card space, so I was just reaching my limit, and I still needed to walk away, and you know, still people yelling, no rushing. These people are very content with standing back here and just yelling, which is indicating again that there was no extreme desire or need, except for the unique person who was willing to really run up the side, right? No extreme pressures to make moves. Old people climbing up the sides of buildings. I was stuck in this little thing as I was trying to get out, and I was just trying to take a picture to show the traffic. Everybody's frozen. This is what I was nervous about, is this level of packed people clogging everything up. And now the police were starting to demonstrate that they were pushing people back. That was my cue to leave. I had been there, I think, a couple hours or whatever. Maybe an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. We'll do it a quick time difference check. But here you go, more old guys climbing up. They got their flag. They're trying to bring it up there, wave it high, wave it strong. You can see that all the police, the original spot was like here. I hope you can see my mouse going. But the original staircase is roughly here. So you can see that the police had lost all the ground that they had. We have control of this top side as well. And you can see that the police have now taken back the scaffolding. Let's see. They're mingling with protesters a little, even right here. This cop is smiling. And you can look, they have their weapons in a low position. They're not actively shooting people. This entire row of people right in front of these police have their backs to them, which shows that they weren't rushing up here and arresting people. These people are precariously balancing on the edge. More demonstrations, more proofs that this was not something where everybody needed to be arrested immediately, pepper sprayed immediately, billy clubbed. There was an uncanny level of casualness to this whole event. Just gotta make sure I'm still recording here. It's weird. And now that I've left the Capitol building, I'm turning around and just getting some pictures of the aftermath, really. It still looks like people are feeding in through this door. The cops have taken almost total control of the scaffold. But there's still people turned around, not looking at them, so there's a low threat involved there. And this is just leaving on the way out. Gust of wind, blow the flags. I'm just trying to get some pictures of people walking away, right? There's still people saying move forward. Still people just transiting around. But this is definitely after Trump was done speaking. I still haven't even gone past the pond. You can see the back side, which is the west side of the pond, to the west of the Capitol building, is in the shot. So I still haven't walked past that yet. And there you have it. That's pretty much it. They have control of that. There's still the protesters up on that top side. Use your own judgment. I got the pictures to show. It was not a crazy. It was wild, but I don't think it was crazy. There was a level of casualness that was pretty uncanny in my opinion. It actually kind of showed me the American spirit and how they are like the rattlesnake, like Benjamin Franklin talks about, right? They'll only strike at the very, very last second when the rattle has no purpose to rattle anymore. And the majority of Americans apparently were showing that they were still just shaking their rattle pretty much this whole time. And there was a few people that got bit, but the amount of people that were up on the Capitol versus the amount of people actually damaging stuff is such a mathematically small number. I'm sure you could very easily argue that the people causing damage was such a mathematically insignificant number / significant number of such a small concentration. You don't need to arrest the entire protest. That's just ridiculous. That's straight ignorant. because the serious majority of people were peaceful. Thank you for watching my presentation, and I encourage questions.